In this video, we will take a deep dive into Transformer Rise of the Beast. We will break down the storyline, give a clear plot summary, and explore the main cast and the character. We will also look at the film's production background and examine its box office performance. To wrap things up, we will share reviews and our personal reactions. Let's jump right when we begin talking about Transformer Rise of the Beast. It's important to slow down for a moment and appreciate why this film deserves discussion beyond just explosion and giant robots. On the surface, it's another entry in a long running blockbuster franchise. But if we look more carefully at its genre, its director, and its production style, we begin to see why this movie is worth examining. This film is firmly belong to the science fiction action category, but it also blends adventure elements in a way that feel closer to a treasure hunt epic than a pure war film. Set in 1994, the movie moves from the streets of Brooklyn to an ancient ruins in Peru, giving it a globe-trotting energy. Unlike some earlier entries in the franchise that focused almost entirely on large-scale destruction, Rise of the Beast leaned into mythic storytelling. It introduced the Maximals, drawing inspiration from the Beast War era of the Transformers core, which add a prehistoric and almost mystical layer of to the narrative. This combination of science, technology, and ancient artifact mythology gives the movie a different flavor. It feels less mechanical and more adventurous. The genre blending is also interesting because it reflects a broader shift in blockbuster filmmaking. Modern audience expect more than visual spectacle, they want emotional grounding. This movie attempts to anchor its high concept science fiction with a personal human struggle, particularly through Noah Diaz, a former soldier trying to support his family. That emotional thread gives way to the chaos. Whether the film fully succeeds is open to debate, but the effort alone makes it worth analyzing. Now let's consider the director Steven Cappell-Jor previously directed Grade 2, which balanced drama, character with franchise expectation, bringing him into the Transformer universe. Signal a desire for fresh energy. His directing style often emphasizes character reaction to the large-scale action moments instead of letting CGI stakes and physical space. In The Rise of the Beast, we see that approach in a way action scenes are staged. The battles are cleaner and more readable compared to some earlier installments. The editing allows viewer to follow the movement rather than feel lost inside digital chaos. Cappell-Jor's involvement also reflects a generational shift in blockbuster storytelling. He brings a different cultural perspective and a sense of grounded realism, especially in the portrayal of 1990s Brooklyn. The human character feels slightly more lived in, less exaggerated. That does not mean the film abandons spectacle, far from it, but there is an attempt to balance humanity with machine's mythology. Finally, we should talk about the production style. Produced by Paramount Picture and based on the iconic toy line from Hasbro, the film carries the weight of franchise expectation. The visual effects remain central. The Transformers themselves are intricately designed with mechanical detail layer over expressive motion capture performance. What stands out here is the slightly brighter, more careful palette compared to earlier darker film in the series. The Peruvian jungle sequence add natural texture and vibrant greens contrasting sharply with metallic grays. The production design also attempt to simplify the visual clutter that critics often mention in previous films. character design, particularly Optimus Prime and Optimus Primal, feel cleaner and more faithful to their classic animated counterpart. There is a subtitle nod to nostalgia without fully retreating into it. The 1990s soundtrack and fashion choice further strengthen the atmosphere, creating a setting that feels distant within the franchise timeline. So, why this movie worth discussing? Because it represents a transitional moment. It tries to evolve a well-known action franchise by blending mythology with science fiction, by hiring a director known for character-driven storytelling, and by defining its production style to feel more coherent and emotionally grounded. Whether one view it as a triumphant reinvention or a cautious step forward, it undeniably reflects how blockbuster filmmaking continue to adopt. It carried an estimated production budget of approximately 195 to 200 million US dollar. This figure represents the direct cost of producing the film and does not include marketing, advertising, or distribution expenses, which for a summer blockbuster of this scale can add tens of millions more. Within the context of modern Hollywood franchise filmmaking, this budget places the film firmly with the upper tier of big budget action release, though it is not unusually high compared to the similar visual effect driven properties. A significant portion of the estimated cost was likely allocated to visual effects. The Transformer franchise depends heavily on advanced CGI to create its robotic character detail transformation sequence and large-scale battle scenes. Each Transformer character requires intricate modeling, animation, lighting integration, and compositing to convincingly interact with live-action environment. Because Rise of the Beast introduced the Maximals alongside the Autobots and Terrorcons, the number of fully realized digital characters increased, which would have expanded rendering time and post-production cost. Complex action sequences, particularly those set in jungle environment and urban locations, require extensive digital enhancement even when practical footage is used. As a result, visual effects likely consume one of the largest share of the production budget. Another major area of resource allocation involves cast and crew compensation. While the film does not rely on multiple A-list actors commanding extremely high salaries, it still features a sizable ensemble cast and well-established voice performers. Payment to the director, producers, screenwriters, cinematographers, stunt coordinator, and department head from a substantial portion of the overall cost. Additionally, large production require hundreds of crew members across departments such as lighting, sound, costume design, and art direction. Those labor expenses accumulate over a multi-month shoot. Location shooting also influenced the financial structure of the production. The film was shot in multiple countries, including the United States and the Peru. Internationally, filming increased transportation, lodging, permit, and insurance expenses. However, such costs can sometimes be offset by tax incentives or rebates offered by host government seeking to attract film production. Even with incentives, moving equipment and personnel across continents requires careful logistical planning and significant funding. Practical effects and stunt coordination add another layer of expense. Although much of the action is digitally created, real world stunt, pyrotechnics, and vehicle work are still necessary to ground the spectacle in physical reality. These sequences demand specialized crews, safety measures, and insurance coverage, combined with high-end camera equipment involving digital cinematography tools. Technical production costs continue to rise for film aiming to deliver blockbuster scale visual. When compared to the earlier entries in the Transformer series, the estimated 195 to 200 million dollar range align closely with past installment. Transformer Dark of the Moon reportedly had a similar budget while Transformer Age of Extinction exceeded $200 million. Transformer The Last Knight was even more expensive, with some estimate placing it well above $200 million. In that context, Rise of the Beast does not represent a dramatic increase in franchise spending, but rather maintain the established financial scale typical of the series. Looking beyond the franchise, the budget is also comparable to other action-driven tentpole films. Many superhero and science fiction blockbuster releases in the last decades routinely operate within the 180 to $250 million range. Films with the Fast and Furious franchise, for example, have often reached or exceeded similar production levels. Therefore, Rise of the Beast fit comfortably with an industry norm for effect heavy action film designed for global audience. Overall, the production budget reflect the economic realities of contemporary franchise filmmaking. Large scale visual effect, international shooting schedule, experienced creative team, and complex post production pipeline collectively drive cost upward. While creative teams and complex post production pipeline collectively drive cost upward, while $200 million represent a substantial investment, it is consistent with the expectations attached to a globally recognized brand intended to deliver spectacle on a cinematic scale. Transformer Rise of the Beast operate primarily within the science fiction genre, but it also blends adventure elements in a way that shapes both its mood and overall cinematic atmosphere. While giant transforming robots and large scale battles define the surface experience, the film's genre identity goes deeper than spectacle alone. It combines futuristic technology with mythic storytelling, creating a tone that feels both modern and ancient at the same time. At its core, the film is structured as sci-fi action adventure. The science fiction aspect is rooted in extraterrestrial being, advanced robots, and cosmic threats such as unicorn. The action dimension emerges through high-speed chase, combat sequence, and explosive confrontation. However, what distinguishes this installment from some earlier entries in the franchise is its stronger emphasis on adventure storytelling. The search for the Transrap key gives the narrative a quest-driven structure similar to a treasure hunt. This choice influences the atmosphere, making it feel less like a non-stop urban war and more like a journey that moves across locations and structure. The setting of 1994 played an important role in shaping the film's mood by situating the story in a pre-digital era. The movie cultivates a slightly nostalgic atmosphere. The soundtrack, fashion, and cityscapes evoke a grounded human world before smartphones and constant connectivity. This choice subtly softens the tone. Instead of presenting a hyper-modern battlefield, the film allows moments of character interaction and reflection to breathe within a familiar, almost retro environment. Atmospherically, the movie alternates between two distant modes. In urban sequence set in Brooklyn, the tone feels gritty yet energetic. The camera often stays closer to street level, emphasizing the human perspective. When the story transitions to Paris, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. The jungle landscape introduces a sense of mystery and scale. The environments feel ancient and spiritual, especially as the maximal are connected to themes of guardianship and preservation. This geographical contrast creates tonal variation, preventing the film from becoming visually monotonous. Pacing is another defining element. The film follows a traditional three-act blockbuster structure. The opening act establishes character motivation and gradually introduces the cosmic threat. The middle section slightly breaks into action, heavy sequence and travel, while the final act delivers an extended climatic battle. Compared to some earlier Transformer films, the pacing here is somewhat More control action scenes are spaced with short emotional interludes, particularly involving Noah's family responsibility. These quieter beats attempt to provide emotional grounding before the narrative return to large scale combat. In terms of tone, the film balances seriousness with moment of light humor. Mirage, for example, inject playful banter into otherwise tense situation. This comedic energy prevent the film from becoming overly dark. At the same time, the threat posed by unicorn add genuine weight. The idea of a planet consuming entity elevate the stake to a cosmic level, giving the story a mythic tone. The film does not dive deeply into philosophical theme, but it frames the conflict as a battle not just for survival but for planetary preservation. Stylistically, the direction emphasizes clarity in action choreography. The visual effects are prominent, yet the camera movement and editing aim to keep transformation and better, more readable than in some previous entries. Bright jungle green and warm daylight tone contrast with metallic texture and explosive fire, creating a more vibrant color palette. This stylistic choice contributes to slightly lighter overall mood even when the stakes are high. Overall, the genre of science fiction adventure shapes a film that feels expansive and energetic, while the mood oscillates between grounded human drama and mythic spectacle. The atmosphere moves from city grid to ancient wilderness. The pacing balances character movement with explosive sequence, and the tone mixes humor with cosmic danger. Together, these elements create a cinematic experience that aim to be thrilling, accessible, and visually immersive without a burdening emotional undertone. Before audience even step into the theater to watch Transformer Rise of the Beast, expectations are already firmly in balance place. This is not just another standalone action film, it belongs to a globally recognized franchise with nearly 2 decades of cinematic history. Viewers' anticipation is shaped by nostalgia with nearly 2 decades of cinematic history. Viewers' anticipation is shaped by nostalgia, prior experience with the series, marketing campaign, and genre familiarity. Understanding those expectations require looking at viewers' demographic, anticipated theme, and the broader community of genre fans. From a demographic perspective, the films target multiple audience groups simultaneously. The primary demographic include teenagers and young adults who enjoy high energy action, visual spectacle, and fast paced storytelling. The PG-13 rating reinforces this target, signaling that the film is designed to be accessible to a wide age range while maintaining intense battle sequence. At the same time, there is a strong appeal to viewers in their late 20s and 30s to who grew up with Transformers animated series or toys. For many of them, the inclusion of the maximal evokes nostalgia tied to the Beast War era of 90s 90. That generational connection significantly shape expectation. These viewers anticipate not only action but also respectful no to childhood memories. Family audience also form a secondary demographic. Patients who watch earlier Transformer film may bring children who are discovering the franchise for the first time. For this group, expectations revolve around large-scale entertainment value. They anticipate thrilling robots, battle humor that keeps younger viewers engaged in enough emotional content to make the story feel meaningful without becoming overly complex. The franchise brand itself carry a promise of spectacle which strongly influence ticket buying decisions. Genre fans, particularly those who enjoy science fiction and action adventure films, approach the movie with a different set of expectation. They anticipate advanced visual effects, imaginative world building, and a clear hero versus villain structure. Science fiction enthusiasts expect the technological aspect of the Transformer universe to feel detailed and immersive. Action fans expect large scale set pieces, creative light, fight choreography, and escalating stake. For them, the experience is measured not only by story but also by the execution of spectacle. A Transformer film is expected to deliver scale, massive robots, global consequence, and visually impressive destruction. There are also expectations shaped by the film's position within the franchise timeline because it follows a relatively well received Bumblebee installment. Many viewers anticipate a continuation of a slightly more character focused approach. Some expect a balance between emotional storytelling and blockbuster intensity. Audience who felt earlier entries were overly chaotic or visually overwhelming may hope for clearer action sequences and stronger human character arc. The hiring of director Stephen Jar likely contributed to expectation of a more grounded narrative style, particularly after his work on character-driven action in Greed 2. Anticipation theme also play a role in shaping audience mindset before viewing. Marketing material emphasize unity between human and Autobots, suggesting themes of cooperation, loyalty, and personal growth. Viewers may expect the human protagonist's journey to involve personality, sacrifice, or redemption. The presence of unicorn introduced cosmic stakes, so the audience anticipate a conflict that goes beyond local battles and touches on planetary survival. Science fiction fans in particularly expect mythic elements, especially with the introduction of the Maximal, who add an ancient guardian dimension to the narrative. Additionally, nostalgia plays a subtitle but powerful role, setting the story in 1994 create anticipation for culture references, music, and aesthetic tied to that area. For older viewers, this may promise a sense of familiarity and emotional resonance. For younger audiences, offer a stylized look at pre-digital world which can feel fresh and distinctive compared to contemporary setting. At the same time, expectation can create pressure. Long-running franchise often carrying mixed reputation. Some viewers approach with cautious optimism, hoping for improvement in storytelling coherence or tonal balance. Others attend primarily for visual spectacle, expecting entertainment rather than narrative depth. In either case, the franchise label set a clear promise, large scale action, recognizable robotic heroes, and an epic battle between good and evil. Ultimately, audience expectation before watching the film are shaped by demographic diversity, gender loyalty, nostalgia, and franchise history. Teen viewers anticipate excitement, inspector adult fan anticipate continuity and respect for legacy character. Science fiction and action enthusiasts expect visual ambition and high stake. These layer expectation from the lens through which the film is experienced long before the opening scenes begin. When examining Transformer Rise of the Beast, it became clear that the film is designed with a very specific yet broad commercial audience in mind. As a large scale science fiction action blockbuster, it targets viewers who are drawn to spectral driven storytelling, fast pacing, and visually ambitious filmmaking. By analyzing age group, interest, and genre preferences, we can better understand the type of viewers this movie is made for. In terms of age group, the primary target audience fall within the teenage to young adult range, roughly age 13 to 35. The film's PG-13 rating reflects this demographic focus. Teenagers are likely to be attracted to the explosive action sequence, high-speed chases, and powerful robotic battle. The storytelling style is direct and energetic, avoid overly complex narrative structure which keep it accessible to younger viewers. At the same time, young adults who grew up watching earlier Transformer film or animated series may feel a nostalgic connection. For viewers in their 20s and 30s, the 1994 setting can evoke familiarity, especially with its music choice and urban aesthetic. While teenager and young adult from the core audience, the film also appealed to older franchise follower adults who have followed the Transformer brand since childhood may watch out of long-term loyalty. However, the emotional depth and thematic complexity are not primarily structured for mature art house oriented viewers seeking subtitle character studies. Instead, the film emphasizes accessible emotional arc and clear moral conflict which broaden its appeal but keep it centered in mainstream entertainment. In terms of interest, this movie is clearly crafted for viewers who enjoy large scale action and visual spectacle. Those fascinated by futuristic technology, robotics, and aliens mythology are especially well positioned to appreciate the film's premise. The concept of sentient machines that transform into vehicle or animal offer a blend of mechanical design and imaginative fantasy. Fans who enjoy video games, comic books, and superhero narratives are also likely to feel comfortable within its cinematic space. The storytelling style share similarity with comic book adaptation, where clear heroes, formidable villains, and world-threatening stake drive the narrative. Adventure enthusiasts are also the form of the intended audience, unlikely purely urban battle film. This installment include global travel and jungle exploration element. Viewers who enjoy quiet style narratives where characters search for powerful artifacts and uncover hidden histories may find the structure appealing. This inclusion of ancient ruins and mythic guardians add a layer that extend beyond mechanical warfare, appealing to the fan of adventure cinema. Genre preferences play a crucial role in defining the target audience. The film is primarily robotic, rooted in science fiction actions. Viewers who favor a realistic drama, slow paced, independent film, or dialogue heavy character studies may find the movie less aligned with their taste. In contrast, fans of high energy blockbuster superhero sagas and CGI driven spectacle are the ideal audience. The pacing is designed to maintain momentum with action sequences appearing at regular intervals. This rhythm caters to viewers who expect consistent excitement rather than extended introspective scenes. Humor also plays a part in broadening the target audience. Characters like Murray inject light-hearted banter, making the film accessible to viewers who appreciate comedic relief within action heavy stories. This tonal balance ensures that the movie does not become overwhelmingly dark, which helps maintain family friendly accessibility for older children and teenagers. Additionally, franchise followers represent a significant portion of the intended audience. Those who have seen previous Transformer film may approach with expectation regarding character portrait and continuity. The inclusion of familiar figures such as Optimus Prime reinforced brand recognition. For these viewers, the film serves not only as standalone entertainment but also as a continuation of large cinematic universe. It is made primarily for teenage, young adult, and franchise enthusiasts who enjoy science fiction, action, and visual dynamic storytelling. It appeals to viewers interested in robotics, mythology, infused adventure, and large-scale battle, while it remains accessible to family audience and nostalgic older fans. Its core design prioritizes energetic pacing, spectacle, and clear heroic theme. The ideal viewer is someone seeking immersive blockbuster entertainment rather than quiet realism, someone who values excitement, visual creativity, and epic take on a cinematic scale. The emotional experience promised by the film is rooted in spectacle, urgency, and accessible human connection. While the film is driven by large-scale action and science fiction elements, it is structured to offer more than mechanical compact. Its emotional design combines high-intensity mood, universal theme, and a clear intended impact aim at leaving audience energized rather than overwhelmed. In terms of mood, the film balances tension with excitement. From the opening sequence, there is an atmosphere of looming threat. The presence of cosmic force like unicorns establishes an immediate stake that feel expensive and dangerous. This creates a mood of urgency a sense that events are accelerating towards something claustrophobic. However, the tone does not remain dark or oppressive for long period. Moments of humor, especially through character interaction and witty experience. And now we talk about the moments of humor, especially through character interaction. The witty dialogue interrupt the tension and prevent emotional heaviness from dominating the experience. The overall mood is therefore dynamic rather than static. It shifts between suspense, exhilaration, and light-hearted commentary. Visually, the mood is reinforced by contrast. Urban setting convey grit and grounded realism, while jungle landscape introduce wonder and scale. These environment shift influence how viewers feel throughout the film. In city scenes, the emotional tone lean toward personal jungle and survival. In the jungle sequence, the mood expands into mythic adventure. The sense of discovery, uncovering an ancient secrets and hidden guardian add awe to the emotional palette. This variation ensures that the film feels like a journey rather than a continuous pattern. Thematically, the movie centers on unity, responsibility, and trust. The relationship between human and Autobot reinforces the idea that cooperation across differences is necessary to overcome overwhelming odds. The theme is not presenting through philosophical dialogue but through action and shared risk. Noah's personal storytelling, which involves supporting his family and finding purpose, ground the cosmic conflict in relatable humans. Take the film suggests that heroism does not always arise from destiny alone but from choice and responsibility. Another recurring theme is loyalty. The Autobots and Maximal are portrayed as guardians willing to sacrifice for Earth's survival. Their willingness to fight alongside humans emphasize mutual reliance. This theme contributes to the emotional promise of solidarity. Viewers are meant to feel that even in the face of planetary destruction, unity offers hope. The conflict between good and evil remain clearly defined, which create emotional clarity. Audience are not asked to navigate moral ambiguity, but rather to invest in straightforward battle between protector and destroyer. The intended emotional impact of the film is primarily exhilaration. The climatic sequences are designed to create adrenaline fuel excitement, rapid pacing, large scale visual effect, and escalating confrontations build toward a peak moment of triumph. When heroes succeed, the emotional release is meant to feel earned and celebratory. The structure aligned with traditional blockbuster storytelling, where tension accumulates before resolving in a victorious finale. At the same time, the film aimed to evoke inspiration. The underdog narrative surrounding Noah reinforced a message about stepping into courage despite personal fear. His growth arc is meant to leave viewers with a sense of empowerment. The idea that an ordinary person can contribute meaningfully in extraordinary circumstances carries emotional weight, particularly for younger audience. Importantly, the movie does not promise dread, tragedy, or prolonged sorrow. While moments of loss may occur, they are from framed with a broader arc of hope. The tone avoid lingering despair. Instead, it maintains forward momentum and ultimately conclude with reaffirmation rather than devastation. This makes the emotional experience accessible and uplifting rather than heavy. It promises an emotional journey defined by high energy, excitement, clear heroic theme, and moment of heartfelt connection. Its mood alternate between tension and wonder. Its theme emphasizes unity, responsibility, and its intended impact is to leave audience feeling thrilled, inspired, and satisfied by a triumphant resolution. It is built upon a timeless story concept, the convergence of ordinary humanity with extraordinary forces set against the backdrop of cosmic imbalance. Beneath the visual spectacle and mechanical grandeur lies an abstract narrative about responsibility, unity, and the fragile line between survival and annihilation. The film's core idea is not merely about battling robots, it's about guardianship, choice, and the moral weight of power. One of the central themes is worship. The story presents Earth not simply as a battleground but as something worth protecting, a living space caught in the crossfire of the larger universe conflict. The arrival of the cosmic entities introduce a hierarchy of power, fear, beyond human comparison. Yet the narrative consistently returns to the idea that protection of home is a shared duty. Guardianship is portrayed not as dominance but as sacrifice. Those who possess strength are measured by how they use it to shield rather than control them. Closely connected to this theme is the message of unity across difference. The film brings together distant beings, human, Autobots, and Maximal, each with their own histories, perspective, and fear. Abstractly, this represent the bridges of world. The story suggests that survival in the face of overwhelming destruction requires cooperation between the familiar and the foreign. Trust must be built where suspicion once excited. This thematic structure mirrors larger human narrative about collaboration across cultures and identities. A line formed in the films becomes symbolic of collective resilience. Another important theme is agency. The human protagonist stands at the intersection of the personal struggle and universal crisis. On a conceptual level, the story argues that significance is not predetermined by scale. Even in a conflict involving cosmic forces, individual choice message, the message embedded within this idea is empowering courage, arise from circumstances and transformation, both literal and metaphorical, is triggered by the scene. The film uses the transformation of a machine as a visual metaphor for the transformation of character. Change becomes an act of will rather than inevitability. The story concept also revolves around imbalance and restoration. A cosmic devourer threatens existence itself, represented in entropy, consumption, and unchecked hunger. This abstract antagonist embodies force that stabilize order against this looming void. Stand the principle of preservation. The struggle is not only physical but philosophical. Destruction versus unity, chaos versus structure. The film's narrative momentum is fueled by the attempt to restore equilibrium. In this way, the story aligns with mythic archetype in which heroes defend the world from primordial darkness. The theme of heritage is subtly woven into the narrative fabric. The introduction of the ancient guardians imply a theme that predates current conflict. This suggests the present crises are often echoes of older struggle. Abstractly, the film hints at the cyclic nature of history, how threats reinforce in new form, and how each generation must confront them anew. Legacy become a guiding force. Characters are not isolated actors but inheritors of unfinished battles. Another conceptual layer involves trust in the unfamiliar. The presence of aliens begins challenge human perception of control. The story explores the tension between fear of the unknown and the necessity of alliance. In abstract terms, it asks whether coexistence is possible when differences appear insurmountable. The film answers affirmatively, suggesting that cooperation is forged not through similarity but through shared purpose. Sacrifice is also embedded in the core idea. Protection often demands strength is tested not only in combat but in willingness to endure loss for a greater cause. The narrative frame sacrifice as a meaningful rather than futile, reinforcing the idea that value is defined by intention. In this sense, heroism is less about invincibility and more about moral commitment. The broader message of the film can be understood as hopeful resilience despite overwhelming odds. Connection create possibility. The convergence of machine and human world symbolize harmony between technology and humanity rather than conflict. Instead of portraying progress as destructive, the story frame collaboration as constructive. Power becomes ethical when guided by empathy. Ultimately, the core idea of the film rests on transformation in its most expansive sense. Physical transformation reflect internal change. Isolation give way to alliance, and fear gives way to courage. Destruction is countered by preservation. Through this abstract theme, the story proposes that survival depends not solely on strength but on unity, responsibility, and conscious choice. Beneath the metallic surface, an explosive confrontation lies, a narrative about balance, about standing at the edge of chaos and choosing to protect what connects us. The central conflict of the film operates on multiple layers, extended fear beyond a simple confrontation between opposing forces. At its most abstract layer, the conflict revolves around the tension between preservation and annihilation, trust and suspicion, responsibility and self-interest. While the narrative is framed within a science fiction spectrum, the deeper struggle is philosophical and moral in nature. One of the most significant moral dilemmas embedded in the story concern power and its rightful use. When immense strength exists, where technological, cosmic, or strategic, who has the authority to violate? The film presents a world in which certain being possesses capabilities far beyond human limit. This creates an imbalance not only of power but of control. The moral question becomes whether such power should be used to dominate, escape, protect, or destroy. The central tension emerges from conflicting answers to that question. Preservation demands restraint and sacrifice, while destruction often stems from hunger, ambition, or survival instinct. The story explores how easily power can shift from protective to exploitative when guided by fear or disruption. Another major dimension of the central conflict is trust across difference. The narrative places distant groups separated by region, experience, and identity in a shared crisis. This creates an underlying tension rooted in uncertainty. Can farmers stranger becomes aliens? Can cooperation exist when histories are separate and motives unclear? The challenge lies not only in confronting an external threat but in overcoming internal hesitation. Suspicion becomes a silent antagonist, undetermining unity from within. The moral dilemma is whether to risk vulnerability by trusting others or to remain guided and isolated. The film positions trust as both necessary and dangerous, intensifying the emotional stake. Responsibility form another pillar of the central conflict. Characters are forced to confront the weight of their choices. On an abstract level, the story asks where individuals should prioritize personal survival or collective welfare. The tension between self preservation and sacrifice becomes central. Protection of a larger community often demand personal risk. The narrative emphasizes that heroism is defined not by invulnerability but by willingness to carry burden other. Can't this create a moral crossroad? Act for oneself or act for something greater? The struggle between these impulses generate emotional depth. Between the surface level action, there is also an existential tension woven into the story. The presence of consuming force introduces the idea of inevitability. When destruction appears, overwhelming despair becomes a natural response. The conflict therefore include a philosophical dimension, whether to surrender to hopelessness or to resist against impossible odds. This internal battle mirrors the external one. The challenge is not slowly defeating a threat but maintaining belief in the possibility of survival. Hope itself becomes a contested space. The film suggests that resilience is as critical as strength. Another layer of conflict arises from identity. Character must reconcile who they are with what circumstances demand of them. When extraordinary situations disturb ordinary life, individuals are pushed beyond familiar boundary. The moral dilemma center on transformation, whether to cling to past roles or step into new responsibility. Change can be unsettling, especially when it requires confronting fear or abandoning comfort. The tension lies in expecting growth while acknowledging vulnerability. The story portrays transformation as necessary but emotionally complex. The central conflict also examines loyalty. Allegiance are tested under pressure. The question of loyalty should be directed to one's own kind, so newly formed alliance or to a broader moral principle creates strain. Loyalty can unite, but it can also divide if priorities differ. The narrative suggests that loyalty rooted in compassion strengthens mood bonds, where loyalty rooted in domination fracture them. This distinction shapes the moral landscape of the story. At a broader conceptual level, the conflict reflects the balance between chaos and order. Destruction represents unchecked appetite and imbalance, where preservation symbolizes harmony and unity. The struggle between becomes symbolic of humanity, broader challenge how to coexist with forces that could either elevate or erase existence. Technology and power are not inherently good or evil. Their direction determine outcome. The moral tension stems from this neutrality. Every decision pushes the balance in one direction or another. Ultimately, the central conflict is less about physical confrontation and more about ethical choice. It asks whether unity can overcome fear, where responsibility can outweigh selfishness, and whether hope can endure in the face of extinction. These dilemmas create sustained tension throughout the narrative. The external threat amplify internal struggle for forcing character to define themselves through action in abstract terms. The film presents a world at the edge of collapse and asks a simple yet profound question. When confronting with overwhelming darkness, what principle guide the choice to stand and protect rather than recreate and survive while alone? The movie, the surface narrative of intergalactic warfare and mechanical spectacle, conceal a layer exploration of theme that extend into mythical question, emotional growth, and culture identity. While the films operate within the blockbuster science fiction tradition, it engages with ideas that resonate beyond visual action through its character and conflict. It reflects on responsibility, belonging, sacrifice, and unity in a fragmented world. One of the most prominent themes is responsibility in the face of overwhelming power. The story repeatedly raises ethical questions about how strength should be used when individuals or group possesses capability that others do not. What obligation accompany that advantage? Power in the film is either inherently virtuous nor inherently destructive. Its moral value depends on intention. This creates a broader ethical conversation about moral values depend on intention. This creates a broader ethical conversation about stewardship. Protection of the vulnerable becomes a recurring principle, suggesting that true strength is measured not only by dominance but by restraint and defense. Closely related to this is the theme of sacrifice. Characters confront moments in which personal safety conflict with collective survival. The ethical tension lies in deciding whether self-preservation outweighs communal duty. The narrative frames sacrifice not as loss alone but as meaningful commitment to something greater. In doing so, it reinforces a moral ideal that courage involves emotional arc often pivot around this realization that stepping forward despite fear define character more than retreating from danger. And the central theme is unity across differences. The alliance between humans and the aliens being symbolized cooperation across culture and existential divide. These themes invite reflection on real world Parallels involve collaboration among communities with distinct histories and identities. The film presents diversity not as an obstacle but as a source of strength. Ethical questions emerge around trust. Can individual overcome suspicion of the unfamiliar? Is coexistence possible when perspective diverge? By positioning collaboration as essential to survival, the narrative emphasizes interdependence as a cultural value. The emotional arc within the film reinforces these themes on a personal level. Character who, being with doubt or insecurity, gradually develop confidence and clarity of purpose. Growth is portrayed as transformation not merely in physical form but in intended belief. Fear involving determination, isolation give way to partnership. These emotional shifts create a sense of progression that mirrors the external strength. Now the audience witness character stepping beyond self-limiting perception, reinforcing the idea that identity is not static but responsive to circumstances. Family and loyalty also play an important role in shaping the thematic landscape. The concept of protecting loved ones motivate action, grounded cosmic stakes and intimate emotion. Ethical questions arise about the balance between personal loyalty and broader moral duty. Should one prioritize immediate family or the survival of the wider world? The narrative suggests that these responsibilities are not mutually exclusive but interconnected. By defending the larger community, one ultimately safeguards personal bond as well. Culturally, the film explores representation and heritage through its setting and character background. By situating significant portion of the story in location outside the typical American metropolis, the narratives broaden its visual and cultural scope. This shift acknowledges global interconnectedness. Its subtitle highlight how threat to the planet transcend national boundaries. The presence of diverse characters contribute to a more inclusive portrayal. Reels of heroism, courage, and leadership are not confined to a single cultural identity but shared across perspective. Another theme involves the relationship between humanity and technology. The transformer embodied advanced machinery with consciousness and emotion. This blurred the line between mechanical and organic life. Ethical considerations surface about coexistence with technological power rather than depreciating machines slowly as tools or threat. The films portray them as allies capable of empathy and joy. This reframing encourages viewers to consider technology as a partner rather than an adversary, providing that it is guided by ethical intent. Hope emerges as a unifying theme through the narrative. Despite overwhelming odds, characters continue to the emotional trajectory resist nihilism. Instead, it affirms resilience. The film does not deny danger or loss, but it positions perseverance as meaningful. The idea that unity and courage can counter destruction form the moral backbone of the story. Ultimately, the film theme explored in the films intervene ethical responsibility, emotional transformation, and cultural inclusivity through its grand spectrum. It poses questions about power, sacrifice, loyalty, and trust. It suggests that survival depends not merely on strength but on compassion and cooperation. Beneath the metallic clashes in cosmic stakes lies a reflection on what it means to stand together in a world defined by difference and uncertainty. The emotional connection in the film is built through a careful balance of spectacle and sincerity. While the film is visually driven and filled with large scale action, its stability to resonate with viewers depends on how effectively it grounds cosmic conflict and relatable human emotion. The connection formed not through complexity alone but through clarity of mood, universal theme, and the immersive viewer experience it creates. The mood play a central role in shaping emotional engagement. From the beginning, the atmosphere carries a sense of urgency, a looming threat, establishing tension, create anticipation, and mild anxiety in the viewer. However, this intensity is consistently softened by moments of warmth and humor. The films avoid emotional monotony by shifting between suspense and lightness. This dynamic rhythm allows audience to breathe between high-stake sequences. As a result, viewers remain emotionally investing without feeling overwhelmed. The alternating mood mirrors real-life emotional cycles: stress followed by relief, fear followed by hope, which make the experience feel familiar within a fantastical context. The story connects through ideas that are universally accessible: responsibility, family, loyalty, courage, and trust are not abstract philosophical concepts, they are lived experience for most viewers. When a character is motivated by the desire to protect love ones, the emotional reasoning is immediately understandable. The stakes may involve planetary survival, but the emotional driver is intimate. This layering is crucial by tying global consequence to personal motives. The film ensures that viewers feel the weight of events on a human scale. Another key factor in emotional connection is transformation, not only physical but internal. The narrative presents characters who being with uncertainty or limitation and gradually confront circumstances that demand growth. Viewers often respond strongly to underdog arc. Watching someone step into bravery despite doubt create inspiration. The emotional experience become participatory. Audience project themselves into that journey. The message that ordinary individual can rise to extraordinary challenges reinforce identification and empathy. The theme of unity also strengthens emotional resonance. The lines between different beings symbolize cooperation across divides. In a world where audiences are familiar with social and cultural fragmentation, stories emphasizing collaboration can feel reassurance. The idea that differences can become strength rather than weakness tap into a deep emotional desire for connection. When characters overcome speculation and work together, viewers experience satisfaction that extend beyond narrative resolution. It speaks to a broader human hope for harmony. Visually, the film scale enhances emotional immersion. Sweeping landscape and large battle sequence create awe, and awe is a powerful emotional trigger. It makes viewers feel small yet connected to something vast. Our spectral alone does not guarantee connection. The film pairs visual grandeur with close, grounded character movement, facial expression, quiet exchange, and personal decision anchor the story. This contrast emotional limitation with an epic scale heighten impact. The viewers feel both the enormity of the conflict and the vulnerability of those facing it. Music and pacing also shape the viewer experience. Energetic sequence raise adrenaline while quieter scenes allow emotional reflection. The film's rhythm mirrors a heartbeat fast during confrontation, steady during resolution. This pacing guides emotional flow, ensuring that tension builds toward release. When resolution arrives, it feels earned. The emotional payoff is structured around relief and triumph rather than ambiguity. Importantly, the story does not dwell heavily in despair. Even when danger peaks, the tone maintains an undercurrent of hope. This consistency reassurance audience that the journey through intense lead toward affirmation. Viewers leaves not a burden by existential dread by but uplift by perseverance. That positive emotional aftertaste is intentional. It aligns with blockbuster expectation while reinforces thematic optimism. Ultimately, the emotional connection arises from accessibility. The mood is engaging without being oppressive. The themes are universal without being abstract, and the viewer experience balance spectacle with sincerity. By combining high stake adventure with personal motivation and cooperation, The films invite audience to feel excitement, empathy, and inspiration simultaneously. Beneath the metallic battle lies a story about standing together in uncertain time, a message that resonates emotionally long after the final scene fades. In this film, the character dynamic is structured around recognizable archetypes, yet they are given enough personality, emotional grounding to make them engaging within a spectre-driven narrative. The film centered primarily on No Diaz, Elena, Violence, Optimus Prime, Optimus Perimal, and Scotch, each representing distinct archetypal role that shape the story's emotional and thematic direction. No Diaz serves as the central human protagonist and clearly embodies the reluctant hero archetype. He is not introduced as a natural warrior or a chosen warrior. Instead, he began as an ordinary man facing personal and financial pressure. His defining personality traits include protectiveness, resourcefulness, and vulnerability and quiet determination. What makes Noah effective as a lead as is his grounded emotional motivation. He is driven not by glory but by responsibility toward his family. In reviewers term Noah's work because it feels human in a world dominated by towering machine. His hesitation and doubt make his courage believable. His arc reflects transformation not in literal mechanical sense but in emotional maturity and self-confidence. By then he grows in someone who understands that bravery often means stepping forward despite fear. Alina, while as the secondary human lead, fulfill the truth seeker or intellectual explorer archetype. Her defining traits include curiosity, intelligence, moral conviction, and persistence. Unlike Noah, whose strength emerged through physical action and sacrifice, Elena's power lies in courage and belief. She represents the idea that discovery and understanding are form of heroism. As a reviewer, her presence brings balance to the narrative. She prevents the story from becoming slowly about comeback by emphasizing historical context and the importance of the preserving knowledge. Elena's emotional arc center on validation, proving that instant and stepping into confidence within system that initially underestimate her. She embodies the theme that intellect and courage are not separate qualities but complementary strength. Optimus Prime represents the seasoned warrior archetype. His personality is defined by stoicism, discipline, and deep sense of duty. However, this installment adds a layer of internal tension to his character. Rather than being purely composed and noble, he is portrayed with moments of frustration and rigidity. As a reviewer, this slight vulnerability add complexity. Optimus Prime challenges not physical power he possesses that in abundance but trust. His arc revolves around learning that cooperation with human is not weakness but strength. He symbolizes the burden of leadership, particularly the isolation that can accompany responsibility. His transformation is ideological rather than physical. He shifts from grounded servilism toward renewed relief in alliance. Optimus Primal, leader of the maximal function as a wise guardian archetype, his defining trait include patience, spiritual awareness, and calm authority. In contrast to Optimus Prime intensity, Optimus Perimal executes a steadier presence. As a reviewer, he feels almost mythic, less reactive, more reflected. He embodies the theme of legacy and continuity, representing a longer historical perspective on conflict. His character reinforces the idea that strength does not always require aggression, sometimes it requires restraint and perspective. Finally, the Suraj, as the primary antagonist, fits the harbinger of destruction archetype. His personality traits include ruthlessness, loyalty to a higher destructive force, and emotional detachment. Unlike complex villains driven by their motivation, Suraj represents focus, meaning he is not conflicting, he is purposeful from a reviewer standpoint. His function is thematic rather than psychological. He embodies chaos and assumption of force that threaten balance. His simplicity enhance the clarity of the moral conflict. The audience is not meant to emphasize with him but to recognize him as a symbol of unchecked destruction. Overall, the character in Ensemble blend recognizable archetype with enough personality depth to sustain emotional investment. Noah Diaz provide relatability and growth. Elena Violence add intellectual strength and curiosity. Optimus Prime often leadership, tension, and moral weight. Optimus Primal introduce wisdom and legacy. Suresh deliver clear, intimidating opposition. Together, they create a character framework that supports the film theme of unity, responsibility, and transformation while maintaining the accessible structure expected of a blockbuster narrative. In this film, the acting performance play a crucial role in grounding an otherwise spectacle heavy narrative. While the franchise is known for its large scale visual effects, the emotional credibility of the story depend heavily on the commitment of the cast. This installment benefit from performances that lean into sincerity rather than exaggeration, helping the human element feel present amid touring CGI character. Among the Anthony Ramos stand out as a Noah Diaz. Ramos brings a raw, grounded energy to the role. His performance feels emotionally accessible, particularly in moments that emphasize vulnerability and responsibility. He does not portray Noah as a polished action hero. Instead, he allows fear, doubt, and protectiveness to coexist naturally. That emotional transparency makes his character arc believable. In quieter scenes, Ramos communicates internal struggle through subtitle, facial expression, and tone shift. In action driven moments, he balances urgency and relatability. His performance anchors the film's emotional core, ensuring that audience connect to the human stake behind the spectacle. Alongside him, Dominique Fishback deliver a thoughtful and quietly confident performances as Elena Bolas. Fishback brings intelligence and warmth to the role. Her portrayal emphasizes curiosity and moral conviction without overplaying intensity. She gives Helena a sense of authenticity, particularly in scenes where the character must assert herself or defend her belief. Emotionally, Fishback performances radiate determination beneath calm composure. She avoids caricature, presenting Alina as both capable and human. The nose in her reaction, moment of awe, fear, and realization contributes significantly to the film's sense of wonder. The supporting cast also play a vital role in shaping the film's emotional atmosphere. Wagner voice actor Peter Cullen returned as Optimus Prime, and his vocal performances remain one of the franchise's most recognizable strength. Cullen's deep, resonant delivery carries authority and gravity. However, in this installment, subtitle emotional reflection had layer of frustration and internal conflict. His words communicate leadership burden without needing visual cues. Even as the CGI character Optimus Prime feel emotionally present, largely because of Cullen's consistency and witty tone. Ron Permal voicing Optimus Permal brings a contrasting energy. His voice carries a steadier, almost spiritual calmness. Permal's performance emphasizes wisdom and restraint. The contrast between Cullen's intensity and Permal's grounded composure enhance the dynamic between the two leaders. Their vocal interplay subtitle reinforce the thematic tension without relying on overt dramatics. On the antagonist side, Peter's Dinklage attends Minas to Suraj. Dinklage's wise performance execute cold determination and quiet cruelty. Rather than shouting or overacting, he delivers lines with restraint and which make the villains feel more controlled and dangerous. The emotional act of his performance lies in that calm breathlessness. It adds a layer of seriousness to the cosmic stake. The film benefits from moments of humor, particularly through Patty Davidson, whose voice is Mirage. Davidson's natural comedic timing introduces levity that feels spontaneous rather than forced. His playful delivery provides relief from tension-heavy sequences. Importantly, his humor does not entirely undetermine emotional stake. Instead, it humanizes the robotic character, making Mirage feel expressive and personable. In terms of chemistry, the interaction between Anthony Ramos and Dominique Fishback feel natural and unforced. Their shared screen time convey mutual respect and evolving trust. The emotional progression between their characters develop gradually with strength and authenticity. On a larger scale, the vocal chemistry among the Autobots and Maximal enhance the sense of unity. Even without physical human presence, the performance make lines feel genuine. Overall, the acting in this film succeed because it prioritizes emotional honesty over spectacle. The lead actor ground the narrative with sincerity, while the supporting cast, especially the voice performer, add gravitas, warmth, and humor. Together, their performance ensure that beneath the explosive action and visual effect, there remain a beating emotional heart that audience can connect to. In a franchise built around transforming alien robots, realism may seem like a secondary concern. Yet in Transformer Rise of the Beast, realism and character depth play a crucial role in determining whether the spectacle feel emotionally grounded or purely mechanical. While the film operates in a heightened science fiction universe, its success depends on how conveniently it portrays human motivation and internal growth. The story attempt to balance fantasy and relatability. From a character development standpoint, the film centers much of its realism on Noah's Diar's. His arc follows recognizable human trajectory. He begins with limitation, personal pressure, and uncertainty about his future. Rather than positioning him as an intense hero, the narrative follows him to grow gradually. His development is shaped by responsibility and circumstances rather than destiny. This progression enhances realism because it mirrors real world emotional growth. He reacts to danger with hesitation before courage, reflecting natural human psychology. His transformation is internal, a shift in confidence and purpose rather than sudden implausible lean into heroism. Alina Violence development also contribute to the film's grounded quality. His arc revolve around validation and belief in her own expertise. He is not portrayed as typically dominant but intellectually resilient. The realism in his character stem for their her persistence in the environment that initially overlook her contributions. Her growth feels credible because it is based on confidence rather than exaggerated capability. By giving her space to assert knowledge and curiosity, the film avoids reducing her to a supporting accessory. Instead, she becomes an acting participant in the unfolding narrative. Believability in a science fiction blockbuster relies less on literal possibility and more on emotional authenticity. The Transformers themselves, through entirely digital creation, gain depth through their motivation. Optimus Prime, for example, is depicted not as an unshakable icon but as a leader wrestling with frustration and doubt. This knows add a layer of realism to his authority. Leaders in crisis often struggles internally, and allowing that vulnerability to surface humanize him. Despite his mechanical form, his grounded stances toward human reflect a believable intense for caution both from past conflict. Optimus Primal, by contrast, embodies calm assurance. His demure suggests experience and reflection, adding generational depth to the narrative. The contrast between the two leaders create a dynamic that feels psychological, coherent. One represents urgency and tension, the other stability and foresight. Their different perspective making their alliance feel negotiated rather than automatic, with strength and believability. Emotional range is another area where the film attempts to deepen realism. Characters are not confined to a single note. Reaction, fear, hope, frustration, loyalty, and determination all surface at different points. Noah's emotional range is particularly noticeable. He moves from anxiety to resolve, from escapism to trust. Those shifts are not abrupt but layered, reflecting gradual adaptation to extraordinary circumstances. Helena similarly displayed curiosity, awe, concern, and courage by allowing character to react with a mixture of emotion. The film avoids flattening them into archetypal stereotype. However, the depth is calibrated for mainstream accessibility. The film does not dwell extensively on moral ambiguity or prolonged introspection. Emotional beats are clear and purposeful, aligned with the pacing demand of a blockbuster. Within this limit psychological complexity, it may maintain narrative clarity. The realism here is emotional rather than psychological. Viewers may not encounter deeply integrate character studies, but they do experience motivation that makes sense within the story's framework. Ultimately, realism in the film is achieved through a consistent emotional urging. Character respond to events in ways that align with their established traits. Development occurs through challenge and cooperation rather than convenience. The emotional range displayed by both humans and Autobots ensure that even with a world of cosmic threat and mechanical transformation, the core experience, fear, responsibility, trust, and courage remain recognizable. That emotional grounded provide the depth necessary to make the fantasy feel accessible rather than detached. Transformer Rise of the Bee was produced with an estimated budget in the range of $195 million to $100 million. This places it firmly with the upper tier of contemporary Hollywood blockbuster filmmaking. The figure represents production expense only and does not include marketing and distribution costs, which for a global franchise release can significantly increase total financial exposure. From an analytical standpoint, the budget reflects both the scale of the franchise and the technical demand of a visual effect driven action film. Looking at cost range, a production budget nearly $200 million is consistent with major studio tentpole release over the past decade. Film featuring large-scale CGI character, extensive post-production work, and international filming frequently operate within the $180 million to $250 million bracket. Compared to the earlier entries in the Transformer franchise, this installment remained financially aligned. Previous films such as Age of Extinction and The Last Knight also operated at or above the $200 million level. Therefore, Rise of the Beast does not represent a dramatic escalation in spending, but rather a continuation of established franchise investment pattern. In terms of resource allocation, a substantial portion of the budget was almost certainly dedicated to visual effects. The Transformer film rely heavily on detailed CGI, modern advanced rendering, motion capture, integration, and large-scale digital battle environment. Each robotic character require intricate design, animation, and compositing to interact conveniently with live action footage. Because this film introduces additional factions like the Maximal alongside Autobots and tarot cones. The volume of complex digital work, increased visual effect, vendor rendering form, and the extended post-production schedule contribute significantly to the overall cost structures. And other major allocation area involve cast and the crew composition. While the human leads were not among the highest paid stars in Hollywood, the film still required salaries for principal actor, voice performer, the director, producer, cinematographer, and the department heads. The production of this scale employs hundreds of technicians across lighting, sound, stunt coordination, costume design, and art department. Labor cost accumulates steadily during multi-month shorts, particularly when filming takes place across different countries. Another major location shooting also influenced financial distribution. The films was shot in the United States and Peru, among other locations. International filming increased logistical expenses such as travel, accommodation, transport of equipment, security, and permits. However, such costs can be particularly offset by government tax incentives or production rebates designed to attract film projects. Even with incentives, global should require complex coordination, contingency budgeting, production, practical stunt, and action choreography represent another cost category. Although much of the spectacle is digitally enhanced, physical vehicle work, explosion, and non-location action sequences demand specialized crew and safety infrastructure. Insurance coverage for high-risk sequence further add to the expense. Additionally, high-end camera system and digital production technology raise technical costs, reflecting the industry move toward increasingly sophisticated film making tools. When comparing Rise of the Beast to the similar film, its budget align closely with other CGI heavy action franchise. Many superhero films from major studio operate with comparable financial parameter. Installment in the Fast and Furious franchise, for example, have also reached or exceeded the $200 million mark due to the international shooting and elaborate action sequence. Science fiction epics with substantial post-production demand frequently fall within the same cost spectrum. In that context, the film budget appear typically rather than excessive. Overall, the production budget of the film reflect the economic realities of large-scale franchise filmmaking. The $195 million to $200 million range signal confidence to the brand global appeal, while commanding the technical demand of the advanced visual effect. International production logistics and ensemble casting calmly view the financial commitment position the film squarely within the norms of modern blockbuster cinema, where spectral technology and global distribution justify substantial upfront investment. In the North America region, the film earned approximately $157 million during its domestic theatrical run. This figure reflects ticket sales from the United States and Canada combined, which together represent one of the most significant markets for Hollywood release. While not record-breaking, the total indicate a solid performance in a competitive summer release window. Understanding the domestic box office requires more than looking at the final number. It involves considering timing, confidence, behavior, franchise history, and the broader theatrical trend. The film opened with roughly $60 million in its first weekend, a figure that signaled meaningful interest from audience, particularly core franchise fans and younger moviegoers. Opening weekend numbers are often driven by brand recognition and pre-release marketing momentum. In this case, the Transformer name continued to carry weight domestically, drawing viewers who were familiar with earlier installment or nostalgic for the property. Earlier peak in popularity, the initial turnout suggests that anticipation was healthy, especially among action and science fiction enthusiasts. The weeks that allow show a more moderate pace of earning. Like many franchise sequels in recent years, the film experienced noticeable drop after its debut. This pattern reflects broader audience trend in the domestic market, where opening weekend account for a larger share of total revenue than they did in the past. Social media reactions, streaming competition, and a crowded theatrical calendar often compress box office performance into shorter window. Viewers tend to decide quickly whether to see a film in theater or wait for digital release. When compared to earlier Transformer film, the domestic total of $57 million represent a decline from the franchise highest performing entries, the original 2007 film, and its immediate sequel reached significantly higher domestic total, shifting benefiting from novelty, less franchise fatigue, and the theatrical environment with fewer streaming alternatives. At its peak, the series regularly surpassed the $300 million mark domestically. By contrast, Rise of the Beast aligned more closely with later franchise entries that saw reduced North America return. That comparison, though, must be balanced against change in audience habit. The theatrical marketplace in 2023 differs substantially from the late 2000 and earlier 2010 post pandemic viewers' behavior, inflation in ticket prices, and the rapid expansion of home entertainment options have reshaped what constitutes success. In this environment, a $150 million domestic gross can still be considered respectable, particularly for a film that relies heavily on international appeal as well. Audience demographic also influence the domestic outcome. The film primarily target teenagers, young adults, and long-time franchise followers. Action-oriented science fiction continue to attract a loyal male viewing audience segment. Those studios increasingly aim for broader appeal, while Rise of the Beast include nostalgic element tied to the 1990 setting and introduce new character fiction. Faction is strongest draw remains genre fan rather than general family audiences. Narrower demographic concentration can limit domestic expansion beyond the core base. Comparison to the similar large-scale action film released in the same year provide further perspective. Any blockbuster franchise now land within the 150 to $250 million domestic range unless they benefit from exceptional critical acclaim or cultural event status. Superhero film and legacy sequel also have also faced fluctuating domestic returns, suggesting that audience selectivity has increased. In that context, Rise of the Beast perform in line with mid to upper tier franchise expectation rather than at the top of the market. Ultimately, the domestic box office of approximately $157 million reflect a steady but restrained North America performances. He demonstrated continued interest in the Transformer brand while also highlighting the competitive and evolving nature of the domestic theatrical landscape. The film succeeded in drawing its core audience but did not expand far beyond it, positioning its domestic result as solid yet modest when compared to the franchise's earlier commercial height. When examining the international performances of the film, it becomes clear that overseas market plays a crucial role in the film's overall financial outcome. Outside the United States and the Canada, the movie generated approximately $282 million, bringing its worldwide total to roughly $439 million. As with many large-scale action franchises, international tragedies counted for the majority share of revenue, highlighting the global dependency of modern blockbuster economy. In terms of region-specific performance, the film follow the historical pattern established by previous Transformer entries. The franchise has traditionally been stronger overseas than domestically, particularly in Asia and Latin America. China, which was once the dominant international contributor for the earlier installment like Age of Extinction, remain an important market, though not at the extraordinary level seen during the franchise peak year. The Chinese box office has become more competitive and selective in recent years, with local production capturing larger share of audience attention. As a result, while the film performed solidly there, it did not reach the billion-dollar era number associated with earlier franchise high. Latin America emerged as a notably respective region. Countries such as Mexico and Brazil have historically demonstrated strong enthusiasm for action-heavy Hollywood spectacle, and Rise of the Beast maintained that connection. The film's energetic tone, recognizable robotic character, and accessible action sequence translate well across language barrier, making it appealing in diverse international market. The universal themes of teamwork, survival, and heroism also support cross-cultural accessibility. European market deliver moderate but steady return. The United Kingdom, Germany, and France contributed meaningful tool through performance level reflected broader regional trend. European audience have increasingly diversified their viewing performances preferences, and Hollywood tentpole must compete and not only with other American franchises but also with domestic production streaming platform. While Transformer retain name recognition, the novelty factor has diminished compared to its earlier entries. Market reception internationally can be linked to audience expectation in many territories. Spectacle-driven cinema continue to attract strong turnout, especially when compared with established intellectual property. However, critical reception and word of mouth still influence long-term box office sustainability. The film mixed into positive audience reaction, supported stable earning in some region, but the absence of overwhelming critical acclaim may have limited breakout momentum in other. The marketing impact broad also shape performances. International promotional campaign emphasize large-scale action, new robotic faction like the Maximal, and the nostalgic 90s setting. Trailers were crafted for to highlight visual effect and explosive sequence element that resonate strongly in non-English speaking market where dialogue heavy narrative may not travel as effectively. Additionally, localized premieres, cast appearance, and region specific press engagement help sustain awareness during that release window. It is also important to consider timing. The film entered a crowded global humor release schedule, facing competition from other high-profile franchises and local hits in smaller territory. Release timing can significantly affect international growth, especially when multiple blockbuster titles overlap in key regions. Even a recognizable brand must contend with limited theatrical screen and audience attention span. Comparatively, the international total of around $282 million fall below the overseas peaks achieved by earlier Transformer films, some of which surpassed $700 million internationally during the franchise height. However, in the context of the contemporary global market shaped by post-dynamic recovery pattern, in fluctuating exchange rate and increased regional competition, the figure represents a stable, if not extraordinary, outcome. Overall, the international box office performance underscores the franchise's continued global viability, while it no longer commands the extraordinary overseas dominance of its earlier chapter. Rise of the Beast still rely heavily on international market to drive the majority of its revenue. The film's action-forward storytelling, recognizable branding, and targeting marketing strategies ensure broad global engagement, even as evolving audience trend moderated its ultimate earning potential. When evaluating Transformer Rise of the Beast, the worldwide gross provides the clearest picture of its overall theatrical performance. Globally, the film earned approximately $439 million, combining both domestic and international market. This figure reflects total ticket sale before expenses are deducted, and it represents the cumulative response of the broad global audience across North America, Asia, Europe, and Latin America. From a global audience perspective, the film's earnings show that the Transformer brand continued to hold international recognition and appeal. While domestic revenue accounted for roughly $157 million, international market contributed the larger share, around $82 million. This distribution underscore a familiar pattern in modern blockbuster filmmaking. Major franchise film often rely more heavily on overseas audience than on North America viewers alone. In fact, for many action-driven franchise, international territories can represent 60% and more of total box office revenue. Gross revenue is not the same as profit. To understand break-even analysis, one must consider how theatrical income is divided. Studio do not keep the full amount of box office received. Theater retain a percentage of ticket sale, and the exact split varies by percent of ticket revenue. While in many international territory, the share can be closer to 40% or even lower. In certain large markets, the studio retain portion is significantly reduced due to local distribution agreement. The film's estimated production budget was around 195 to 200 million dollar. Yet the production cost alone does not represent total expenditure. Distribution cost and the marketing expenses must be considered. Global marketing campaign for tentpole release frequently range between 80 million and 150 million dollar, depending on the scale of promotion. Advertising, including television spots, digital campaigns, international premiums, promotional partnership, and the physical promotional material. While these costs are combined with production spending, the total financial outlay may approach or exceed $300 million. Because of revenue sharing and marketing expense, film of this scale often need to earn approximately 2 to 2.5 times their production budget to reach break even. This rule of thumb account for the portion of the ticket sale return to theaters and cover global promotional spending. For a films produced at roughly $200 million, a safe break-even threshold could fall between somewhere between 450 million and 500 million dollar worldwide, with a global total of about 439 million dollar. Rise of the Beast appear to have approached but not significantly exceeded its likely break-even point based slowly on the theatrical revenue. However, theatrical performances represent only one component of the total revenue stream. Modern film economics includes post-theatrical income sources such as premium window on demand, rented digital purchase, physical media sales, streaming licensing agreement, and television broadcasting rights. These secondary revenue stream can meaningfully improve a film long-term profitability. Additionally, the merchandising play a particularly important role in a franchise like Transformer. Toy sales, brand licensing, and promotional tie-ins can generate substantial ancillary revenue beyond the box office. While these earnings are not always directly contributed to the film's theatrical accounting, they contribute to the overall franchise ecosystem and influence studio decision about future installment. Worldwide gross of approximately $439 million. Strong global engagement but position the film nearer its estimated break-even range when accounting for production and distribution costs. Theatrical revenue alone may not represent a large profit margin, yet supplementary revenue stream and franchise merchandising helped strengthen the broader financial picture. The analysis illustrates how modern blockbusters depend not only on ticket sales but on diversified global income channel to achieve sustainable profitability. When assessing the profitability of the film, the question is not simply whether it earns hundreds of millions of dollars, but whether its total revenue exceeds its total cost in a meaningful. Looking at general audience reaction to the film, the response reflects a mixture of enthusiasm, nostalgia, and mild criticism. The film did not spark universal acclaim, but it generated a noticeable wave of engagement among core fans and younger viewers. Audience reception can best be understood through three lenses: demographic, viewers' feedback, and overall engagement level. In terms of demographic, the film primarily attracted younger audience, especially teenage and adult in their 20s and 30s. Many of these viewers grew up with earlier Transformer film, or with the animated series and toy lines of the 1990s. The inclusion of the Maximal and the 90s setting resonated particularly well with millennial who recognize element tied to childhood nostalgia. This generational familiarity created a built-in emotional entry point. The audience also skew may consistent with action-heavy science fiction franchise. However, there was broader diversity compared to some earlier installment. The casting choice and urban setting helped draw a more varied crowd, including who appreciated seeing different culture background representing on screen. Families with older children also form part of the audience through the film's intense action sequence made it more appealing to teens than to the very young viewers. As a complete cinematic experience, the film feels like a franchise recalibration rather than reinvention. It does not attempt to radically redefine what a Transformer movie is, but it does aim to redefine tone, rebalance spectacle with character, and restore a sense of emotional clarity from a reviewer standpoint. The film stands as a solid, competently crafted blockbuster with noticeable strength in production value and energy. Though it also carries familiar weakness tied to franchise formula. In terms of cinematic quality, the film demonstrates improved structural focus compared to some earlier installments. The narrative feels more contained and easier to follow. Action sequences are staged with greater visual coherence, allowing viewer to track movement and special relationship without being overwhelmed by excessive digital noise. The pacing is brisk, maintaining forward momentum while giving select moment room to breathe emotionally. That balance helps the story feel more grounded and accessible even when it's high concept science fiction framework. However, the cinematic ambition remain comfortably with blockbuster convention. The story structure follows recognizable pattern: reluctant hero, escalating threat, alliance building, and climatic confrontation. While executed efficiently, it really surprised the film for momentum rather than narrative risk taking. For audience seeking innovative storytelling or deep thematic subversion, it may feel familiar, yet for viewers looking for polished action entertainment, that familiar work in its favor. Regarding production value, the films undeniably deliver. The visual effects are detailed and polished, especially in the rendering of the robotic character. The metallic texture transformation, large scale action sequence reflect substantial technical craftsmanship. The introduction of the new robotic fraction adds visual diversity, helping the films avoid feeling repetitive. Location shooting also enhance scale, urban environment, and international setting provide tangible backdrop that ground the spectacle. The sound design and musical scoring further elevate the experience. The mechanical weight of transformation, the layer battle sound, and the integration of periods inspire music contribute to immersion. The technically the films look and sound like a high budget studio production. Even critics of the narrative often acknowledge the strong production infrastructure supported it. When evaluating performances, the human cast brings sincerity to the role that could easily become secondary to the digital spectacle. The lead performance anchored the story with emotional credibility, portraying vulnerability and determination without overstatement. The supporting cast contribute warmth and chemistry, especially in moments that emphasize trust and teamwork. The interaction feel more organic than in certain previous franchise entries, suggesting a conscious effort to humanize the narrative. Voice performance for the robotic character also add nose leaders are portrayed with gravitas, while other characters carry distinct total identity. The vocal choices help differentiate personality, reinforce emotional state. Though the robots remain larger than life figure, their dialogue occasionally reflect in conflict and moral tension, adding dimension beyond action, pure action. Thematically, the film explores ideas of responsibility, trust, and unity across differences. At its core, it centers on cooperation with unlikely allies facing existential threat. While these themes are not groundbreaking, they are delivered with clarity and sincerity. The film avoids heavy philosophical exploration, instead opting for accessible moral messaging. That simplicity may limit thematic depth but enhance mass appeal. Among its strengths are improved character focus, strong visual execution, and overall tone that feel more honest than cynical. It respects the franchise legacy while attempting modest evaluation. On the other, its weakness include predictable narrative arc and limited thematic boldness. It play with established boundaries rather than challenging them. Ultimately, it succeed as a polished, entertaining blockbuster that stabilize its franchise identity. It may not redefine cinematic storytelling, but it offers engaging action, credible performances, and high production standard for viewers seeking energetic spectacle. With emotional grounded delivery effectively, even if it's falls short of achieving something truly transformative, it is best suited for viewers who enjoy large scale action spectacle blended with accessible emotional themes. For this film strongly appeal to the blockbuster fan who value visual effects, fast pacing, heroic teamwork, narrative. If you enjoy science fiction and adventure built around epic battle, mechanical transformation, and clear good versus evil dynamic, this movie fit comfortably within that preferences. It is a sci-fi franchise heavy action film. Viewers who appreciate energetic set pieces, high stake conflict, and charismatic tone will likely find it engaging. It also resonates with those who have nostalgia for the Transformer brand, particular audience who grew up in the 90s, 90s and feel connected to the introduction of the Maximum. The film tone is more focused and emotionally grounded than some earlier installment, making it accessible even to casual viewers who may not be deeply invested in franchise lore. The movie is more appropriate for teenager and adult. The intensity of battle sequence and explosive action may be overwhelming for very young children, through older kids who are comfortable with fantasy violence will likely enjoy. Families with teen can find common ground here, as a theme of responsibility, loyalty, and the teamwork are easy to follow and emotionally clear. Viewers who prefer subtitle storytelling, slow burn drama, or deeply complex character study may not connect strongly with the film. Those who feel fatigued by franchise sequel or CGI heavy spectrum may also find it predictable. If you are a prioritized invention over familiarity, this may not fully satisfy. Overall, the film is recommended for action lovers, sci-fi fans, and audience seeking energetic entertainment with straightforward emotional stakes rather than layered psychological depth.